Hey, welcome back, guys. So not a review. I do want to make a review video for this, and it might come with a little more discussion about the controversy surrounding it. But I think most of that discussion about the controversy we're going to try to talk about here in this video right now. I want to be completely honest. I haven't read the Odyssey. I don't think I ever read it for school. Otherwise, I feel like I would have remembered some parts of it, but I don't want to come off like a LARPer or talking out of my ass for the review video coming up, or even this video now. So I did some research. I'm not going to say it was the most extensive research I could have done, but I wanted to hear from experts who have studied the Odyssey for years, spent years of their life studying Greek culture and other writings around that time. If anything, this film coming up has inspired me to actually read the story. I did pick up this translation by Emily Wilson. I have heard it's one of the best modern translations of the Odyssey. Not promising that I'm going to have that thing fully read by this weekend when I see the movie or anything like that, but I do want to read into it, and I've been looking up the most important parts of the story and everything I need to know going into watching this film. I'm kind of sad to make this video a little bit, and it's because I have a bias. Christopher Nolan is my favorite director. I don't think any other filmmaker in history has made a more impressive list of films than Christopher Nolan. My favorite movie ever is The Dark Knight, and if I had to make a top 10 list, I know 4 or 5 of his films are in there easily. Inception, Interstellar, The Dark Knight being number 1, The Prestige with Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. He's just made my favorite movies, and he is one of my favorite directors. And one of the things I liked about him more than anything was the fact that I felt like he didn't do any of this woke crap, and that he didn't let his politics get involved in the film. I'm not going to act surprised to find out his politics. He's not very open about his politics, but I think it's clear over the years that he leans more liberal Democrat based on his donations to certain charities and political candidates over the years. So I'm not shocked to find anything out that he may put small little hints in his movies, but he's been very clear he doesn't want to be overly open about his politics, especially in his films, which I think he kind of failed at in this film, but it's not what you think, and we'll get to that later. And it is going to lose millions of dollars just on those castings alone. It is going to make millions less. Whether that be in the tens or hundreds, I'm not sure, but it is going to lose millions of dollars from just those castings, specifically Lupita. That's the most controversial one. People are just checking out for that reason. Also a bunch of other things. It seems like the way they talk is too modern, the clothing is a little too modern, and then just too many minority castings, taking you out of the experience and making you feel like this doesn't feel like the Greek culture that it's based around, and how the characters were originally described in the original epic. Because of those choices, it's so bittersweet, because again, I was excited for him to make his first film completely recorded Imax cameras, and it has to be a controversial one. That's just kind of sad. That is the thing I'm most excited about when it comes to this film, is I'm excited to see it in Imax. I can't wait to see it for that reason. But when it comes to the actors in this, I'm not very excited. One thing I really wanted to talk about in this video was the difference between a woke choice and a neutral change for the sake of quality. So what did Christopher Nolan do here? For the casting Lupita, casting Zendaya as a Greek goddess, casting even, Elliot Page as a warrior, do any of these fit the description of woke? Specifically, first looking at the race swapping, and does that fit the definition of a woke change with some political agenda attached to it, or is it just a neutral change that's done for the sake of quality, where he's just looking at the film's quality, the acting quality, and trying to get you deeply invested into the story? Spoiler for you guys, when it comes to the race swaps here, I don't see it as a super woke choice. I know Tyrone Magnus put out a video and he said, your boy's been got, they got Christopher Nolan, they got a hold of him and they shook him down, and they've forced him to do this. Elon Musk is saying that he's just doing it for awards. I don't believe any of that. I don't see the evidence for that. I don't think that's likely. I'm not saying that because he's my famous director. I am going to talk about things I don't agree with him in this video. I am going to talk about choices he made I don't like, other things I disagree with him with. So I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying I'm going to agree with him on everything. I'm not disregarding everything you've seen in my previous videos about how I hate woke content and woke choices in Hollywood. All that still stands. I'm not being a hypocrite. I just don't see the evidence that he had a political agenda here when it came to the race swaps. And I don't think anybody forced him to pick these people. He said himself that he thought about Lupita immediately for the role, so it doesn't seem like anyone suggested that to him. It seems like he thought about it himself. I just want to talk about the difference between a woke and a just neutral change in a movie. I would consider a woke choice being something along the lines of sacrificing acting quality, too many race or gender swaps, specifically with popular characters. That's important. And then very obvious political lines of dialogue or imagery in the film. If you have a lot of those things, either some of those things or a combination all in one film, it's then those are all good clues that the director very likely did race swaps with originally white characters for the sake of politics, for the sake of a woke decision. And, you know, there's another one I didn't mention, but this one's kind of obvious. If the director comes out in an interview and directly says, hey, I'm casting more black actors in this movie because I'm trying to give them more jobs and take jobs away from white people because they're privileged and they have too much, and this is like a reparations type thing to make up for slavery or, you know, segregation, Jim Crow, all this stuff, and we've had such a hard time, and so I'm purposely, even if I think of a white actor that's better for the role, I'm not going to hire him because I'm trying to give more jobs to black people. Okay, if the director comes out and says that crap, then yes, obviously it's a woke decision. But I'm saying if a director doesn't come out and say that because Chris Nolan is not coming out and saying that, what clues do you have to look at? And those are the clues and those things that we just listed, I would say those are the clues you would look for. And when it comes to the casting choices in this movie, I don't see those signs. I don't see him completely sacrificing acting quality where he did the race swaps. I don't see too many race or gender swaps here. I really don't. There's not a lot. There's just a couple, and they're not incredibly popular characters. We'll get to that. And then there's not really any obvious political agendas kind of pushed in the film. There's something people are saying about immigration because of Zeus's law. All that is already in the original story. So it's not like Chris is pushing something of his own in here. He's taking something that's already in the original book about treating others as you would treat yourself. The golden rule, basically. Because any of these travelers could be a god, and you could mistreat a god in disguise. And so you want to treat them well. There was an interview recently where somebody tried to get Chris to talk more about that, like, oh, what do you think of that in comparison to America, immigration, Trump, and all that? And, you know, Chris just kind of chuckled and moved on in conversation. He doesn't like to say anything directly about that. I think I saw somewhere where Chris was making a quote about making it feel very fresh for modern audiences. Christopher Nolan generally avoids commenting specifically on casting minorities, but he has stated that his cast aimed to be representative of the modern world. For his film, The Odyssey, he defended diverse casting decisions as necessary to make the story, quote, feel very fresh for modern audiences, dismissing pre-release backlash as irrelevant. What came through there was he's just trying to give a modern audience a better experience. I kind of see it in the same way that a lot of people say, if you see yourself on screen, then you have a deeper connection with the character. I don't agree with that. I think what they're thinking of is definitely character traits. If you show a character that's immature and they grow up to be more mature and learn to become a hero, you can show something like that a general audience, because everybody is a little immature in some way, everyone has areas to grow in their life, like that's easy. But I think they take that too far when they go to visuals, your skin color, your hairstyle. Well, if you don't show enough diversity in these things, certain audience members are going to be left out. I don't think audience members should be trained to care about that. I don't think you should care that you didn't see a Hispanic guy in a movie, or a black guy in a movie, or an Asian woman, or anything. I don't think you should care walking out of the theater going, the acting was incredible, the story was fantastic, the morals of the movie were great, it all blended together so well, also very beautifully shot, and just amazing CGI, animation, lighting, cinematography, whatever. The music was great. All those things you say about a movie, and let's say it's all true and it all happens in one amazing film, and you walk out and you go, yeah, but man, I didn't see another Asian guy in there, and I'm Asian, so I couldn't connect with the characters on a deeper level than I could have if they had made the guy Asian. So it's not a perfect score for me, but it would have been if the guy was Asian. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't agree with them there, and to me, that's what it sounds like Chris is saying. He sounds like those people. that say you have a deeper connection with a character if they look like you physically in every sense. That's why we need to have a diverse cast. So when a diverse audience goes to the theater, you got somebody to look at on screen that looks like you. I don't agree with that. Now, I want to compare this real quick to Jordan Peele talking about casting black people primarily in his films. Now, he's not necessarily race swapping, you could say, because usually his stories are original. And I understand the difference here is Jordan Peele doesn't take usually stories that have already been written, comic books or old poems or anything like that. It's usually he writes them, but still, the logic behind most of his castings looking one particular way. Let's listen to why he does that.
Following the success of Get Out and now Us, Peele says he plans to use his power to keep putting black faces on the screen in leading roles. The director explained, "The way I look at it, I get to cast black people in my movies. I feel fortunate to be in this position where I can say to Universal, I want to make a $20 million horror movie with a black family, and they say yes." Peele says it's a formula he's not interested in messing with. He continued, "I don't see myself casting a white dude as the lead in my movie. Not that I don't like white dudes, but I've seen that movie. It really is one of the best, greatest pieces of the story. It's feeling like we're in this time a renaissance has happened and proved the myths about representation in the industry are false."
Okay, I don't care what you have to say about that. To me, all that screamed was, if there's a white dude who's more qualified for the role and could make the film better, I'm not going to hire them because gotta fill a quota and have to use my wealth and power in this position to only put minority actors. That's what he's saying there. That's actually woke. I'm not saying his movies are bad. His movies are usually great, but could they be better? Could he find a better actor? Possibly. And will he reject them based on what he just said? Yes, and that's woke. I don't see Chris Nolan acting like Jordan Peele here. I don't see him casting for those reasons. I don't see him trying to just give minorities more representation. He's never said anything along those lines. As far as I've seen, he hasn't. If he has, let me know, but I haven't seen anything like that. The modern audience thing seems to be like what we described it earlier, and that's all it is. And I disagree with it. I don't agree with it. I think it's a bad choice. I don't agree that you need to have someone that looks like you in a film, otherwise you can't relate to it. Lord of the Rings is an extremely popular book written by Tolkien that is very, very popular, widely received by millions of people around the world. The movies are fantastic. You know, people debate about the Hobbit trilogy and the old trilogy, but to me, all 6 movies were excellent. They were great. Majority white cast, but everybody loves those movies. There wasn't a huge outcry of, oh, we need to see more minorities in here. When Amazon Prime did their version and did a bunch of race swaps and put black elves and black dwarves in there was controversy. There was people saying we don't want this. There were minorities actually saying we don't want this. But there was a YouTuber who made a really good point about the dwarves and said, how do you get black dwarves when according to the lore they've spent thousands of years, generations of their lives just underground? How do you get dwarves this black? How do you get skin tones developing this dark when you're living underground most of your life? You don't. The answer is you don't. So they ignored basic science, geography, for the sake of having black dwarves because it was a political agenda. Chris Nolan is famously known as Mr. Realistic with his movies. Everything has to be very literal, very realistic. We saw that in the Batman trilogy when he tried to make it a more realistic, believable Batman that could possibly happen and tried to explain a lot of things like his villains and his gadgets and everything. But a lot of the talk of the modernization in the film, I agree with you guys on that the clothes look a little too modern at times. Sometimes it looks like they're wearing hoodies or like regular hoodies or t-shirts or sweatpants, and it looks a little too modern. The way they talk to each other. I know Spider-Man said dad, and then Robert Pattinson says daddy to him. And there's debate about, the original Greek, if you translate it to English, it might sound closer to daddy than father, and there it's like, there's a change people would be fine with. Why? Because the word father sounds like it belongs in a further time period, a time period further away from us than closer to us, like daddy would or dad. So that's why we would prefer that type of language in the film, because it sounds older. And then of course just a few minorities being cast in roles that typically in the original story were described as white people, or in that Greek culture would most likely predominantly in those royal families be white people. So we agree and disagree slightly here in that I don't see Chris doing all of that for some woke agenda. I see it more as he's fallen into that way of thinking, which is will relate to it more. Same way with the black, brown, Asian kid or just person in general, adult, whatever, in theater, seeing somebody that looks like them somehow gives you a deeper personal connection to that character and helps you enjoy the film more. The same way I disagree with him there, I feel like he's falling into that line of logic. I feel like he's also mentally falling into that line of logic when it comes to the modern language, the clothing looking a little more modern. Oh, hey, you know, they're wearing clothes that look like my t-shirt. Oh, you know what? That helps me have a deeper connection with the character. Oh, they're talking a little more like I would talk right now. Oh, they're talking a little more like I would talk these days. Like they're using language that I would use in modern day America. You know what? I have a deeper connection with this character. I think that's mentally where he's going in his decision making here for these things. But I don't agree with him. I don't agree with him. I think it's only going to have a negative effect on the film, and the negative effect is going to be, it's going to be a slap in the face for the audience. I don't know how else to describe it. That's how I've described this kind of thing over the years, is just when a movie does something that's kind of, it is kind of just like a slap in the face. It wakes you up out of the experience. You kind of snap out of it and you go, wait a minute. Oh yeah, that's right. You look around the theater, you notice the speakers, you notice the lights, you notice the people around you, and you kind of realize, yeah, that's right, I'm watching a movie. Because these people would not talk like this back then. There wouldn't be a black queen here. You know, there wouldn't be these things in these places. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's just going to throw you out of the experience a little bit. It might just distract you a little bit and just take you out of it. That's my fear for it. But again, I don't see any sign that he's doing some political thing. Clothing looking a little too modern. What political agenda is there? That's not woke. That, again, it just, all I'm saying is all those things seem like it's tied to the race thing. It's tied to, it's all bundled together in him just trying to, again, he thinks it's going to make modern audiences connect with it more. Still my favorite director, but I disagree with him on that. I don't think that's a good decision. He even said, I'll pull it up. This is an AI overview. This is from Instagram. I don't know how accurate this actually is, but apparently it says that, where is it? Right here. Christopher Nolan defended the dialogue in his epic, The Odyssey, by stating that he wanted, quote, language that has emotional, not intellectual meaning. He explained to the Los Angeles Times that he designed a contemporary, earthy narrative so modern audiences can connect with the ancient characters. Right here's the important part I wanted to show you. Nolan acknowledged the creative choice might divide viewers and joked, saying, quote, I was maybe being naive. It might bite me on the ass. To me, it was a no-brainer. So he's even admitting, he's actually admitting that this is a risky move and he's kind of trying something. I just wish he wouldn't do it with his first fully IMAX filmed film. I wish he wouldn't have done that with this film. I'm so happy he finally got a film completely in IMAX. It's the first in history. That's huge. That's really cool. And man, to experiment like this with this kind of film, I'm not happy he chose this film to experiment with. I guess it is the only film he's done where it takes place in this timeline, or this old of a story. So, I mean, what other film of his was he going to try this with, right? Another thing is I could see Chris just being kind of blindsided by acting performance. I truly do see some of the casting choices, the ones that don't belong, the race swap, I mean, specifically Lupita and, say, Zendaya, who's clearly playing a goddess that I believe is supposed to be white. I know Helen of Troy is supposed to be white. And so I can see him being blindsided by acting quality. Lupita is a great actress. We're not going to talk about her beauty standards right now. We're going to talk about she's a great actor. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Zendaya, she's a good actor, but she doesn't have any range. She's not great. She's not a great actor. I wouldn't say that. And again, she has no range. Every dramatic role she's ever taken, she plays the same damn character. But again, the only thing I can think of is Chris could have seen that and said, well, that's how I want my goddess, and I want her to bring that one dramatic role she knows how to play. And in his mind, he's going, that would actually be perfect. I could see that being his reason, and that typically is usually his reason. With Lupita, I could see him, he said he casted her because he immediately thought of her. Once he started writing the character, or was in the middle of writing the character, They say he broke his rule. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't know if he said he thought of her before he wrote the character, but it was definitely right after he made the character. He said he immediately thought of her. I believe so. And he just pictured her acting as her. That language where he goes, writing the character, I was thinking of her, that doesn't scream to me, yeah, I was writing this character and I noticed that in the book it says she's white, but man, too many white people have gotten jobs in this industry and I just can't support that anymore, and I got to do something for reparations for these people, and I got to cast more black people. He didn't say that. He said as he was writing the character, the first actor he could think of immediately, and it went well in his head in terms of performance, was Lupita. So it seems like he really did just cast her based on acting quality. It doesn't seem like he cared too much about skin tone, and he thought she was beautiful. And here's the thing, she is attractive. What I find is funny is that she doesn't look too attractive in the film. She is an attractive woman. Most of the pictures people are showing, though, to say, how are people debating over this woman's attractiveness? Typically, they show images like this of her looking really beautiful in a gray dress with makeup on and good lighting. But they never show images from the Odyssey when they make this argument, because in the Odyssey, she doesn't look very attractive. They don't make much effort to make her look attractive, which I think is weird. You're trying to sell her as the most beautiful woman in the world, make her look attractive. So that's also something I don't see. That's also something I don't understand that Chris is doing with this film. She doesn't look that attractive. And it seems like they are still, from what I looked up, it seems like they're still maintaining the element that she is extremely beautiful in this movie. I haven't seen a clip where she looks that way. I don't know if those are just bad shots and he's hiding the ones where she's supposed to look gorgeous, but we haven't seen those yet. So Chris is colorblind, I would say, but in a bad way here, ignoring how not casting more people to represent the culture that it's based around, the story, who it was written by, that whole culture, these geographic locations, just doesn't see how it's going to negatively impact the film. And I don't think he sees how it's going to slap people during the film mentally and kind of kick them out of the experience. When you look at his past actions, you actually see the opposite to both of these claims. So let's look at the first one. He's just doing this for awards, casting people because they're popular, things like that. I would say he's done the opposite. He doesn't like to cast people just by their name alone. I mean, he's used the same actors over and over again for a lot of his films, and typically he does like to write the character first without having a character in mind most of the time. He's said that, and has he proven that? He kind of did with Batman. Christian Bale was not very well known before the Dark Knight trilogy outside of American Psycho, maybe a couple other films, and Chris Nolan even said when he was casting for Batman Begins, the first movie in the trilogy, he said he wanted an actor that wasn't a big name actor, that wasn't that well known all across the board, which I liked that. I liked that. That meant he was searching for quality over just, you're a popular name, you'll sell tickets. I love that about Christopher Nolan over the years, is that it was his name that would sell tickets more than anything, you know. And so some people would just say like, oh, who's in this movie? You know, because with a Christopher Nolan movie, a lot of times you'll typically hear, at least from my personal experience with myself and friends and family, is oh, so-and-so's in this movie. That's cool. So-and-so's in there. But it's a Christopher Nolan movie. Most likely, it's going to be great. You know, that's the conversations I hear around his films more than anything. More often than not, with most other directors, the thing you hear is, who's in this movie? Oh, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Pratt, Anne Hathaway. They're good actors. Yeah, this might be good. Oh, those two actors are in a film together finally. That might be a good combination. I could see that working. I'll go see that. Those are typically the conversations I hear about like every other movie. I don't hear anybody talking about directors like they do with Christopher Nolan. I don't hear anybody say, Matt Reeves is directing the Batman movie. Nobody knew what Matt Reeves did before that. Nobody knew that Matt Reeves did Planet of the Apes. Nobody knew any of that stuff. Everybody that sees Christian Bale now goes, hey, that's Batman. Hey, Batman's in this movie. You know, he's going to be known as Batman for the rest of his life because of Christopher Nolan, but he wasn't that well known before the film. If you want to go into the argument that Chris is trying to do the reparations thing without ever directly saying it, and you could see evidence of that here, I would say the opposite has been evident in the past. Tom Hardy, for example, was cast as Bane. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Bane is not originally a white guy in the Batman comics. Bane is typically a Latino character. I think originally in the comics his dad was white, his mother was Hispanic, his mother was Latin, and so you have kind of half and half, but he speaks Spanish a lot in the original comics. He's got dark skin and he wears clothing that looks like a luchador, like a Mexican fighter, like a Mexican fighter, wrestler, whatever you call it. Christopher Nolan clearly didn't use those things, but does that mean that Christopher Nolan was trying to go in a political direction and give a message like, well, I know typically this guy's a Latino, but I'm gonna make him a white guy just to jab at the far left in Hollywood? I don't think he was trying to do that. Again, Christopher Nolan has a realistic lens that he always tries to put his characters through, even when they're popular characters from a comic book source or a poem or something. And so he told himself, I'm not going to do 20 years of Batman movies and 20 something movies like a huge cinematic universe. I just have one trilogy. I can only use a few select villains that are popular. I'm not going to go through all 87 of Batman's villains, Mustard Man and, you know, all the other ones that we're not going to get to. Like, I'm just all the silly ones, you know what I mean? He's going to use the popular ones. He's going to use Bane because Bane is typically a big part of Batman's story, hurts his pride, literally breaks his back, you know, gives him a challenge in his career, and so he uses Bane. But we knew that Christopher Nolan wasn't going to give us the Bane that was going to pump venom into his veins and turn into a giant muscular freak, something the size of the Hulk. We knew that Christopher Nolan wasn't going to give us that. He was obviously going to have to tie it to the other movies to have him show up. He wasn't just going to have the third movie have a random guy just show up and be like, I want to destroy this city. To have that motive, he connected him to the League of Shadows. He connected him to Ra's al Ghul to continue what he was trying to do and destroy the city. So that was a good connection. That's how you got Bane in there. So he did all those things so that we could have Bane, so that we could still have a big, strong guy, so that we could still have the back-breaking scene. He still cared about that. He still cared about keeping some original elements there for the sake of the story, but he didn't give us the brown guy. He didn't give us the luchador mask or whatever you call it. He didn't give us the venom, not because he was trying to make a political statement, but because he was trying to legitimately make the best realistic way to put that character into the film and make it work with everything he had done previously in the trilogy. Those are not signs of a woke director or woke choices for the sake of a political agenda. That is clearly showing a director over the years whose actions have shown he cares incredibly a lot about acting performances, the visuals, cinematic, the music, the story itself, the plot, good morals throughout the film. So I will defend him in saying I don't think he's gone woke, but I will not defend him completely. I will agree with you guys on some things, like, yes, these castings are not very good. They're not. I'm not excited. I'm tired of seeing Tom Holland and Zendaya in things, mostly Zendaya. Tom's not too bad in this one. If you want a similar comparison, let's look at Matt Reeves' The Batman, for example. I would call those woke casting choices. And you might say, okay, well, seems similar to the Odyssey. Why wouldn't you call this woke? Okay, well, let's look at how we defined woke choices in the beginning of this video. We defined woke choices as being something along the lines of sacrificing acting quality, too many race or gender swaps with popular characters, like a lot of them, to where it's kind of like, okay, how much do you actually care about the original source material here? Because it seems like you're changing everybody. Obvious political lines of dialogue or imagery throughout the film. So that's how we kind of started defining woke changes versus just neutral changes for quality. So let's look at the Matt Reeves Batman movie and see what we can find there. What we find is Commissioner Gordon, black man, Catwoman, now a black woman, the mayor of Gotham, typically always a white male, now a black female. You have 3 race swaps and you have 1 gender swap. You have 4 strikes. That's just clue number 1. In one movie, not multiple Batman films over the years, 1 director, 1 Batman movie, 3 race swaps, 1 gender swap. Those are 4 strikes. That's just that's 1 clue. If you think, well, that's not enough to go on, yeah, it's highly likely that there was a political motive there. Especially since these characters are predominantly white and one of them male in the comics, and throughout the animation history and movie history. That could just be a coincidence, and he really did just search for the best actors, and that's what he found. And he just went with the highest quality acting he could find. Okay, let's look at that area. Did he go for the highest quality actor when it came to Commissioner Gordon? No, he did not. Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon was awful. I don't care what anyone says. That was bad. You remember, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Game Night. Love that movie. It's very funny. I like it a lot. But I don't know if you remember, Jeffrey Wright plays an FBI agent, a fake FBI agent for a murder mystery party. And I have to tell you, his acting in that moment, it wasn't too far off from his acting as Commissioner Gordon. I'm not gonna lie. I'm being a little extreme in mocking his Gordon, but it wasn't great. Compare that to Gary Oldman's Commissioner Gordon, and you tell me if that's even close. As much as people want to talk about Heath Ledger and Christian Bale's performance in The Dark Knight, Gary Oldman doesn't get talked about enough. Nobody talks about how amazing his performance was, his emotion, his anger, him looking terrified in that film, looking like we're following a real cop who is actually experiencing a terrorist-like villain who's actually threatening the city with multiple bombs and actually killing tons of people, a murderer on the loose. Gary Oldman really sold a realistic lieutenant / going into commissioner who was dealing with these things in a city like that. I think that was just a legendary performance in that movie, and nobody talks about that enough. I saw The Batman, and yeah, Jeffrey Wright's performance as Commissioner Gordon is nothing close. It comes off too fake and phony. It's just nothing compared to Gary Oldman. And you know Matt Reeves has seen that trilogy. You know he's seen Nolan's Batman trilogy. You know he saw those performances. You know he's seen what he had to go up against. You know that. So you cannot sell me on the idea that he thought to himself, yeah, this is the best Commissioner Gordon that I can get for my movie. There's just no better one out there. Nah, there's no other person that can act better than this as Commissioner Gordon. I'm not saying he had to get Gary Oldman, but there's plenty of other people who could have played that role. He did not go around looking at a bunch of white and black men. If he did, he honestly already had it planted in his mind. I'm going to have a black Catwoman, a black Commissioner Gordon, and a black Mayor of Gotham. He told himself he was going to have all those race swaps because let me tell you something. The acting performances of those three actors was nothing compared to the acting performances of the Mayor of Gotham. Even Christopher Nolan's Mayor of Gotham. I don't even remember that actor's name, but I remember his acting was pretty good. It was pretty good as the mayor, meeting with Harvey Dent in his office. Like, he was a pretty good actor. Commissioner Gordon, Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, their performances, their acting was far better than what we were given by Zoe and Jeffrey Wright in The Batman by Matt Reeves. So, strike two, second clue, the acting wasn't that great. It seems like you sacrificed acting quality to fill a quota and tick off some boxes. It seemed like Matt Reeves did that. Okay, if that's not enough for you, let's go to the third element. Are there any heavy implications of political lines of dialogue, or imagery? Sure, you had Catwoman talking to Batman about white privilege and telling him how to use his money. Throughout the film, it seemed like he was a goth type teenager who had his hair covering his face, who didn't want to do anything for the people, and he seemed gloomy and depressed, and he had to have a talking to by Catwoman about white privilege. Like, okay, that's all the strikes you need. That's everything we just defined in what are heavy clues and what are significant clues in deciding if a director did a woke choice of a race swap versus a just neutral choice for quality reasons. I would say, yeah, Chris Nolan doesn't fall under all those categories and all those clues. Matt Reeves does. Elliot Page, to get this out of the way, I don't know how else to say it, but that to me is the most, I guess, woke thing in this film-ish, because, like I said, I think I said earlier in this video, I'm not sure, but Chris has been, over the years, it's clear that Chris is a liberal or leans Democrat, so it's not super surprising in this regard, but he did obviously give a very clear statement on where he stands on the whole trans debate by casting Elliot Page in the role of a man. By just casting her in that role, he made it very clear where he stands on that debate. So, I mean, based on my videos, I think you can get a clear sense of my political standings, and I don't want to talk about that too much. I don't want to make the channel about that. But I'll just say I'm disappointed in him for that. But again, I'm not going to let that get in the way of judging the film for what it should be judged on, which is its acting, music, cinematography, story, everything else, right? But yeah, that is disappointing for other reasons, and that's the most woke thing in this film, is him casting Elliot in this, and especially as a character that is going to be referred to as one of the greatest warriors ever known. According to one of the characters, there's apparently a line of dialogue in the film where somebody says that Elliot's character is one of the greatest warriors they've ever known. An actor who is small and scrawny and not too much bigger than they were in the movie Inception. So, and they were a pretty tiny girl in Inception. So, yeah, that's concerning. That's also, again, that's a slap in the face, right? Doesn't matter where you stand on the trans debate. You should not want to see a scrawny anybody barely filling a suit of armor being referred to as one of the greatest warriors ever and being great in combat. That just shouldn't be a thing unless they're a superhero with super strength or they have a suit like Iron Man. That just shouldn't be a thing. So that was an odd casting choice. Again, the only excuse I could see for Nolan to get out of that, again, is if he's looking at Elliot's acting qualities and saying, yeah, but you know, she can act so, he's not going to call her she, but you know, like, oh, the acting is so good that, yeah, I have to cast Elliot in that role. Maybe, but the reason I said woke-ish here in regards to Elliot is because, again, I don't see the likelihood that Chris is using this as an opportunity to say, wow, so many people hate trans people, or they're bigots, or, you know, how dare they not accept them or believe everything they believe, and you know, I'm going to change that. So I'm going to purposely cast Elliot in this role, and one of the main reasons I'm doing it is because I want to send a message about that. I don't think he's doing that. That's why I say woke-ish. Because, again, typically if you're a person who has the political leanings and ideology to believe that you can be a woman because you just say you are and justify people getting surgery like that, or a man can be a woman, or a woman can be a man, and you really believe they just are that new thing because they say they are, or because they do a surgery. If you are one of those people that believe that, then from that perspective, Christopher Nolan doesn't see it any differently than just casting a man. He sees himself as casting a man in a man's role. That's why I say woke-ish. I hope that makes sense. But still, it is woke nonetheless to a certain degree, albeit small. It is still a little woke because, again, it gives a clear sign of his stance, and we all know who this person is. We all know what gender this person claimed to be just a few years ago, a long time ago in Inception. That is going to cost him a lot of money. A lot of people are not going to see this film for that reason alone, I'm pretty sure, just because they don't want to support a film that is portraying a biological female as a male character. He is going to lose ticket sales on that alone, I guarantee it. But again, whether or not he's doing some political agenda there or solely based on the acting quality, I lean towards it's the acting quality, but I'm disappointed nonetheless for other reasons. Travis Scott, very quickly, okay, so he said that the Odyssey is a story passed down orally, traditionally that way, so it feels, he said, similar to rap, which I found kind of stupid. I don't agree with that. I think that's weird. There's nothing super political there. It just seems weird. I think you could say the exact same thing. You could, with like country music, you could say country singers tell stories all the time. They tell stories about cheating on their wives, affairs, drinking beer, and going out and fishing, and dancing, working on a ranch or something. Country music, they tell stories all the time. Stereotypical stories like that. And then rap, what did they have? Stereotypical stories of like being a gangster, doing drugs, being part of a gang or something, being tough and challenging other people, so it's like, I don't know, it's weird. It's like there's so many other musical genres you could have said, like, oh, well, I have a country singer in this movie because the Odyssey was passed down orally, so it's very similar to country music because country singers share stories, and it seems similar to rap. To me, that's just as stupid as saying, like, well, here's an ancient story that apparently was historically passed down through chefs, people who cooked meals for kings. And so I put Gordon Ramsay in the film because he's a famous chef. And so I kind of felt it was appropriate, even though, yeah, I could have found a better actor. I just felt like it was a good tribute to the way the story was passed down. So that's why I put him in the movie. That's just as stupid, and I couldn't defend that decision, just like I won't defend Travis Scott being in this movie. It's kind of weird. I don't see it making any sense. That is the one casting where I'll say I cannot defend Chris there, where I can say maybe he was looking at acting quality. That right there just seems like a spot filled for the sake of, I don't know, just the way he words it is just kind of strange. He's like, the way the story was passed down reminds me of rap, so there's a rapper in here. That's okay, it's not a major role in the film. It's not a main character we're with the entire time. Almost like a cameo, right? Last one I really want to talk about. I know there's other names to talk about, but this is the most important one left, I think, is Matt Damon. Okay, so we're done talking about the race swaps. I've given you my thoughts on that. I've told you what I think about Chris's decisions there, where I disagree, where I don't think it's woke, but where I do disagree, and how I think it ruins the experience a little bit and can take you out of the experience. But again, have to watch the movie and see if that's actually what happens. I hope you guys know I am putting a lot of faith in Chris for this one. Buying a ticket and going to see it. Speaking of all that, speaking of putting a lot of faith, Matt Damon. Okay, so like I said, done with all the other controversial discussion. This is just a personal preference. This kind of got drowned out by the race swap conversation about Lupita and, Zendaya and Travis Scott and all that. But some people were talking early on about Matt Damon being cast as Odysseus and saying, I don't really want to follow Matt Damon as an action star. We really haven't done this since Jason Bourne. And that film was somewhat popular, but I'm just going to share my personal preference. And from what I've seen, when it comes to the reaction of this film early on, before the race swapping thing took over the conversation online, it seems like a lot of other people shared my sentiment, which was, I can't take Matt Damon seriously as an action star. Let me know what you think in the comments. There are some actors that just do that for me in a certain way, where, for example, Tom Hanks, Saving Private Ryan. I've seen that movie once, and I'll never see it again because I can't take Tom Hanks seriously as an action star. And it's mostly a visual thing. It's not mostly visual. It's kind of a visual thing. It has to do with the actors, their tone, their voice, their stature, the way they carry themselves, the shape of their face, the height of the character, the build of the character. And Matt Damon gives off similar vibes to me, to Tom Hanks. I can't take him seriously as an action star. In most Christopher Nolan movies, he's typically played a side character, and he's done very well in those roles. I'm not saying I don't like seeing Matt Damon in movies at all, but I can't take him seriously following him for a 3-hour action movie. I'm not excited about that. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. I do like him as an actor, but again, it's just, I'd rather see a much larger, stronger actor play this role than Matt Damon. I'm not too excited about that. Again, just the face, even with the beard and everything, he doesn't look that tough to me. There are a number of other actors that I think could have done this better, but I'm going to see if he proves me wrong, but it's kind of the Tom Hanks thing for me. Jason Bourne, I saw the first one. We'll never see it again. I never saw the sequel. I think he did 1 or 2 more, and maybe another actor filled in for some of the other sequels, but I never saw any more of them. I never saw the first one again because, again, I couldn't take Matt Damon seriously as an action star. Last thing, I promise. Last point. I want to mention something about the argument going around that it's disappointing that they didn't cast any Greek actors in this movie. I don't agree with that. I think that's stupid. I don't care about that at all. I don't care. To me, the first thing that comes to mind is you have plenty of actors in movies these days who give American accents who are British. Tom Holland, I believe, is British, right? He's Spider-Man. Does he speak with a British accent? No. It originally in the comics, is Peter Parker British or is he American? He's American. So Tom Holland doesn't speak with a British accent, right? Because he's playing Spider-Man from New York in the comics. So that's fine. Nobody gives a damn about that. So the people in another similar fashion, let's take Black Panther, for example. The city of Wakanda is in the middle of Africa, right? You expect a bunch of black people to be there. So what if they just showed the whitest white people in Wakanda as the citizens, and Black Panther is just walking them through and going like, yeah, this is the hidden city of Wakanda, these are them, and the Avengers just look around as a bunch of white people, and then he takes them to meet his mother, the queen, and everything, and the palace, and he's like, yeah, this is my mom, and it's just a completely white woman. You know what I mean? What if they did that? Would you say like, yeah, I believe this is the heart of Africa? Definitely. No, they would cast they had a bunch of black actors. And here's the thing, in the Black Panther movie, were they all African? No, they weren't. Some of them, they did have a lot of African actors in the Black Panther movie, and right there you might say, I gotcha, see, they cast African actors for that. Yeah, but not all of them. Chadwick Boseman, who played Black Panther, he's from, where is he from? He's from like North Carolina. He's not from Africa. He's born and raised in America. That dude is not from Africa, but he played an African, and he had a coach teach him how to have the accent. Nobody cared about that. I don't care about that. That's fine, because guess what? He has the skin complexion of people from Africa. That's why he's put in that role. If you have a story focused around a Greek culture in this time period, I'm fine with a bunch of white actors just giving off accents that you would expect from that time, and just having the complexion close enough. You don't need it to be, oh, they need to actually be Greek. I don't agree with that. I think that's stupid. That to me, you people arguing for that is similar to Chris Nolan justifying Travis Scott being in the movie. Well, the movie is, allegorious to rap, so I want to have a rapper in here. You're like, well, it's a Greek story, so I want to have Greek people in here. You need to have them look close enough. If you want to be that nitpicky about it, then you guys should be crying that the Spider-Man actor is not actually born and raised in New York, or just America in general, and it shouldn't be a British actor playing Spider-Man. So I'm not bothered by that as much as I'm bothered by maybe too many minority castings in places they shouldn't be. Did some research, some light research. Apparently, the only way you would get very dark-skinned black people, as black as Lupita, in that culture would be through merchants, travelers visiting. It wouldn't be royalty. I understand Zeus had sex with a queen or something, the queen of Spartans, and he disguised himself as a swan to attract her, which I guess that implies bestiality. I don't know. And she laid an egg. And here's the thing. I don't think Chris Nolan is going to show any of that. And I don't think he's hoping that you guys think back to that when you see her. So again, I think he is casting her with the idea of just the starting point of beautiful woman starts a war, movie goes on from there. I don't think he's trying to get us to think to how she was conceived and all of that. I don't think he's trying to go back to the how likely is it that a black person would be in this royal position. I don't think he's going there, but yes, in all likelihood, she wouldn't be there historically, even in a mythological tale like this, given the setting. So again, my thing is, I think it can take you out of the experience. I said I think. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm going to see it this weekend. I hope it doesn't take you out of the experience, but I'm not going to suck up to him and just because he's my favorite say, oh, there's no chance, it's not going to happen. It's going to be a perfect movie and these casting choices are perfect and, don't be afraid. I'm not going to say that. I agree. It's not a great cast. I will tell you, this is the least excited I have ever been for any of his movies at all. I know he prefers to see it IMAX 70mm, so that's the theater I'm going to. That's the screen I'm going to see it on, apparently, and I am looking forward to seeing it like that. I will post a review afterwards. Like I said, one of the clues is acting quality. If the acting quality drops significantly in a film for a race-swapped character, that is a clue towards, why'd you do this? Doesn't seem like you were looking for the best actor around. Now it seems like you were just trying to tick a box. You know what I mean? So again, I can't be 100% certain on anything until I've seen the movie. So when I see the movie, I can kind of revisit this discussion a little bit and say, oh, by the way, Lupita sucked. She did terrible. I don't think that's going to be the case, but let's say that happened, and I could tell you guys, like, okay, maybe Chris is falling off the deep end a little bit. Her performance was not great at all. Zendaya was horrible. You know what I mean? Travis Scott was absolutely horrible. He was just in there because of the rap thing, you know. But I have to wait and see. So yeah, I'm still somewhat looking forward to it, and I look forward to us talking about it again once I've seen the movie. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.